Hello and welcome back to AP Psychology. I'm Miss Lee and we are finishing out the unit on developmental psychology. This section is adult development. By the end of this video, you should be able to characterize the development of decisions related to intimacy as people mature. You should be able to predict the physical and cognitive changes that emerge through the lifespan, including steps that can be taken to maximize function. You should be able to identify the contributions of key researchers in the area of adulthood and aging, and this includes contributions of Erik Erikson, key researcher in the area of lifespan development. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and grab your notes and let's get started. Okay, so we're going to kind of take a chronological path here. We're going to talk about the early to middlehood adult stage, which is a very long period of time. For social development, early adulthood is often centered around careers. And then somewhere around a person's 40s, they can have what's called a midlife transition. And this is when one starts questioning his or her life and accomplishments. And this is due mainly because of the physical changes that start happening and the idea that life will end at some point. It's kind of like a revelation that you haven't had before, all of a sudden you realize, and so you start really taking a good hard look at yourself. However, for most, the passage into middle age is relatively calm. Instead of focusing on the past or the future, a lot of people focus on the present, and this helps them come to terms with their own circumstances. With regard to marriage, children, and family, people are still getting married, but they're also living together, and the divorce rates are still pretty high. While the Institute of Marriage is changing, around 90% of heterosexual adults will eventually marry, and about 75% of divorcees will remarry. This has been a stable statistic for a while. About 50% of first marriages are ending in divorce. Let's talk about women's roles. This is still, again, in early to middle adulthood. Close to 75% of all married women with school-aged children are working outside of the home. Most working women are coming home to do the majority of the housework, and this is sometimes called the second shift. According to sociologist Arlie Hochschild, employed mothers put in an extra month of 24-hour days during the course of a year. Yet most women who work report a personal satisfaction and a sense of contributing to society. In late adulthood, this is 65 and older, many physical changes are happening. There is thinning and graying hair, skin is wrinkling, and there's usually a slight loss of height. Senses are less sensitive, reaction times slow, and changes in physical stamina. So what causes these changes? We've got two primary theories about what's going on with the aging process. First, there's the genetic programming theory of aging. Basically, this states that there's a built-in time limit to the reproduction of human cells, and it's basically kind of like an automatic self-destruct button has been pushed. It just takes a whole lifetime to detonate. And then there is the wear and tear theories of aging. This is basically explained through mechanical functions of the body simply stop working efficiently as people age. And eventually the body just wears out like an old automobile. In our late adulthood, there are cognitive changes. There are some declines in intellectual functioning during late adulthood. Skills related to fluid intelligence do show declines in old age, yet skills related to crystallized intelligence do remain steady. And this is kind of a review of our last unit, cognition. Fluid intelligence, again, this is being able to think quickly, being able to problem solve, being able to think abstractly. Crystallized intelligence is that ability for verbal skills, for knowledge-based information. It's kind of like wisdom. And crystallized intelligence does tend to remain steady. So a lot of people question whether memory really does decline with old age. Most evidence says not really. The neural processing does slow down, which in turn causes it to take longer to process the memories, but most memory loss tends to be limited to episodic memory. Other types are largely unaffected by age. If a person stays active, both physically and mentally, the memory loss seems almost non-existent. And some memory loss is due to disease. Alzheimer's disease is a specific type of dementia, and this is not the normal course of aging. This is not considered the expected trajectory for aging. Relating to the social world of late adulthood, how does one successfully age? There are, again, a couple of theories. One of them is the disengagement theory of aging, and this basically states that aging produces a gradual withdrawal from the world on physical, psychological, and social levels, and that it's not a bad thing, that disengagement provides opportunity for increased reflection and a decreased emotional investment in others at a time of life when social relationships will inevitably be ended by death. Another theory of aging is the activity theory of aging. And this states that people who age most successfully are those who maintain the interests, activities, and level of social interaction that they experienced during middle adulthood. Late adulthood should reflect a continuation as much as possible of the activities in which people participated during the earlier part of their lives. So which is better? It really depends on the individual and his or her personality. The last theorist we're going to discuss in this unit is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross spent much of her career studying tragedy, studying death and dying, and the cycle of grief as it relates to these events. From her research, she developed the 5 stages of grief. It's almost a mistake to call it stages of grief. Kubler-Ross states that these aspects of grief or factors of grief are experienced by all people facing either death or experiencing grief. The thing about the stage theory from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is that they don't go in any particular order. You can be experiencing them simultaneously. You can skip them entirely. But the 5 stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. You can usually see these stages when dealing with many of the traumas we encounter in life. For example, learning of a terminal illness to dealing with the death of a loved one or some other type of loss, such as the ending of a relationship. Many of us go through these phases for a variety of reasons. And that is it for the development unit. Our next unit is going to be focused on motivation, emotion, personality, and stress. I can't wait to see you then. Bye for now.